Hugo Lennon, the face of March of Australia, isn't just an everyday citizen. He's a grandson of Tony Lennon, former chairman of Peat Limited. The claim that migrants are to blame for Australia's housing crisis. This is Asad Rana again on a different topic this time. I just want to have a quick word about the march of hatred, as it is now known or increasingly being called. There is, for those who you don't know, on August 31st, Australia will witness yet another anti-migrant protest. It's dubbed the March for Australia. But what if I told you that the loud voices blaming migrants for the housing crisis are not only wrong, but deeply hypocritical? We'll dwell into that in a second. And we'll unpack the truth behind the protest, who is allegedly organizing it, what's really driving the housing crisis, the facts about migration, and why racism is never in the interest of Australia's future. Now, this isn't just about opinion, it's about confronting those misleading narratives with facts and building a more just, united society. So, first of all, that is one of Australia's largest and wealthiest real estate development. The Lennon family fortune is estimated to exceed Australian dollars about 340 million somewhere. He's known online as Auspill, by the way, and he's become a voice for anti-immigration rhetoric. But here is a contradiction. His family's wealth comes from an industry that relies on housing demand, a demand that is driven in part by population growth. Now, there is a disclaimer, though, that even his family is distancing themselves, from what I know, from him and his actions. Peat Limited has issued statement affirming their commitment to diversity. His sister, I believe is a lawyer, has also made it clear that Hugo speaks only for himself. So when Hugo leads a protest against migration, ask yourself, is this really about housing? Or is it about scapegoating vulnerable communities while ignoring the economic structures that actually drive unaffordability? Well, it's not only false, but it is a dangerous distraction from the real issues. So the real culprits for housing crisis, what are those two factors? For those who know me, I've been in banking, having served with three of Australia's big four in various capacities. And by trade, I've been a lawyer now. So that is my second life. But I can tell you that there are two factors that housing crisis. One is the negative gearing. This is where the property investors, they can deduct their rental losses from their taxable income. So if a taxable income is 100,000, say losses are 10,000, then they pay taxes on 90,000 or resultant money. The second is the capital gains tax discount, which is a 50% discount on profits from selling investment properties held over 12 months. Together, these two tax cuts, by the way, they cost federal budget around $49 billion. And that is in 2024-25 alone, right? Who is really benefiting from these? Not an average Australian, not a person who is looking for, the first property to get into the market. Who's really benefiting from this are the rich and the famous, people who are right there on top of the food chain. And they want to park their money somewhere, but at the same time, they don't mind keeping it vacant because that property is going to incur losses. And when they have losses, they can claim that on their taxes as tax deduction. Now, the top 10% of income earners who receive more from tax breaks than the bottom 90% combined. And that is a reality. Now, this is not about average Australians, about you and me, about most of the people who are going to be in that protest of hatred into thinking that somehow all of the issues related to housing market are because of immigrants who have been coming in. There's about 1.3 million homes that sit vacant as we speak, right? Or are underused. Now, if Hugo and his supporters were serious about solving the housing crisis, they'd be rallying down for tax reform, right? Not targeting migrants, because that is a fact. The billions of dollars hit to the economy and unused housing spaces, houses sitting vacant. Now, there's also a dangerous myth about mass migration. It's one of the areas that I practice in. Criminal law, I do civil law, and migration law is one of those areas. Now, Australia's migration policy is a very tightened policy in itself. Matter of fact, we are all complaining all the time. A number of lawyers, migration agents, they will be complaining about delays. I myself, contributory parent visas, where a person has to pay something like $50,000 to $60,000 to bring one of their parents in per parent. And that too, if 50% of their family is in Australia, it's something called a family balance test. Those people, believe it or not, have been waiting now, some of them 4 years, some of them over that, and they haven't been given the visa yet. The files are just picked up or about to be picked up. But the point is that already there is a very strict regime that governs Australian migration system, right? You've got a lot of delays, cap places every year, how many people can come into Australia. So it's not a regime which encourages mass migration in the first place. In 2023-24, I believe there was about 210,000 permanent visas that were granted. The problem with these is, look, problem with the figures that other people or the proponents of this anti-mass migration, the information that they're putting, the problem with that is that they do not understand the different types of visas. Like if your occupation, for example, let's say a doctor. In Australia, we need doctors. So the government will put out this as area of occupation where applications can be accepted. So already it is based on the need, actual need of Australian society. So it's not like anyone can just apply regardless of their occupation. Whenever you think about mass migration, though, what comes through your mind is all these people, refugees, protection seekers. It's not like that. There are a lot of people who are contributing positively to Australia. I'll give you my example. So I came as a student. When I came, I was quite young. I was a teenager. I came to Australia and I contributed to the Australian education system by paying the international student fees, which are obviously higher than the local students. And this is one of the reasons why or how Australia can fund studies to its own now. I mean, you've got people who are going to get education, and you must have heard about fee help and HECS and all that sort of thing. Where do you think money comes from? The universities, they need money to function, to research. And student or education industry is Australia's second or third largest industry. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of money that has been brought in by these students so that Australia or we as Australians can contribute to our own now and educate and do research and development. And I remember Greens brought in a policy to say, well, discussing a policy to say, well, we're going to make education totally free. And then the question raised was, well, where is the money going to come from? International students. Of course, international students, because they bring in money. I paid my school fees and then I graduated and then I applied for an occupation which was in demand. So as a skilled migrant. And then I became a migrant. Since that time, I've been serving banks and as I said to you, I'm now in the legal fraternity. Studied over many years, different fields as well. But the issue, the reason I'm saying that is I've been paying taxes. I've been contributing to the society. I'm a law-abiding citizen. So what is so wrong with people who are brown or black or Asian or, whatever other denomination, racial denomination? What is wrong with that? Maybe you are thinking possibly too much on the wrong lines. Maybe it is time that you address your issues, your bigotry, and your racism. These people, they should not contribute to us. I mean, I've got a lot of Australian friends, left, right, and center. Some of them are brown, some of them are black, some of them are Asian, Chinese, some of them are white. They're all my friends. And we've never even thought about, well, who is what color when we're dealing with each other. So there is a very small minority, I would say, in Australia who is thinking this way. And people like Hugo Lennon, the millionaires, right? They're just using that to confront the society and the development in society by raising these small, minuscule issues and forgetting everything else positive that the migrants and the locals together or have been contributing. Migrants, they don't just come to Australia, they build it. Consider this, 50% of medical doctors in Australia are overseas trained. Did you know that? You go to GPs, you go to specialists, 40% of nurses and aged care workers are migrants, right? The old people are being looked after. The old and the ailing and the vulnerable of Australia are being looked after by migrants. 40% of those. In every 10, 4 of those. Maybe higher. But that is what I've got from statistics. All these people, they are contributing to Australian way of life. When they contribute, they don't see that they are helping out whites or blacks or browns. They are there. So why is your heart so narrow, tiny, that you cannot simply have the humanity in yourself to understand that all these people who are coming, they're still humans and they're not bad for us and they're not evil. A vast majority of them, they are good contributing citizens. Yes, you have troublemakers in every society, in every denomination, whites, blacks, brown, criminals, crimes. They don't need to be defined by a color or caste or creed. Now, this march, by the way, is not a patriotic movement at all as it's being portrayed. It is a reactionary, decisive campaign, right? And it's rooted in misinformation and fear. Racism is never going to resolve or solve the housing crisis. businesses. It doesn't build homes. It doesn't grow the economy. It never has. Add to that, Australia has got one of the lowest birth rates in history. Now, without migration, our aging population would strain the healthcare services and productivity. One of the things that I would encourage people who are going to this march is this really the hatred? Is this the bigotry? Bigotry means that you don't understand someone's culture, someone's religion. So you start hating them because you've never talked to them, you've never tried to understand them. Is this because of that, or is it someone else pulling the strings somewhere, behind the scenes? Do you remember there was a march, Sydney Harbour Bridge? 300,000 or over 300,000 people attended that in support of Palestine and Gaza against the genocide that is being committed there by Israel. And now we have got a reaction to that. As soon as this was a successful march, showing the Australian politicians that, look, Australia has made its mind. We do not condone, and we are never going to be part of any genocide where innocent civilians are killed, regardless of whatever motive reason there is. And when it became a success, you have these people come up and bring about this march of hatred. So timing is quite interesting for me. I don't know what is your view on it, but I think there may be someone else behind it, just using people, just like sheep. They just say, oh, look, we're going to have sort of a moral purpose of getting rid of all the browns and the blacks from Australia, not realizing that they are being misused. Same thing happened in Cronulla rights, some years ago. I don't know, some of you might remember it, but it was total devastation of the area. The local community, the people, whether they were white or they're Arabs or they are black or white, they were all scared of going out. No one knew it was going to be targeted and hit, that someone just come and bash. Is this the society that we want? The March for Australia is not a patriotic movement. It is a reactionary, a divisive campaign rooted in fear and misinformation, and I would even say a hidden agenda. You are all being used. Racism doesn't solve anything. What it does is that it tears the communities apart. It fosters a distract from the real levers of power, right? And the economic policy, tax law, political inaction, it basically puts all of them to sleep and comes on the face of it and says, hey, the real reason is all these blacks and Arabs. Now, as Australians, what we need to do is ask the hard questions and demand honest answers. The housing crisis is real. Stand for justice, and we must stand for a future where policy is not prejudice. It is policy that we must stand for facts, we must stand for justice, and we must stand for a future where policy and not prejudice shapes our country. There's another objection been raised as part of this march, that it is against the politicians. I've done a video about democracy, right? Support your independence. Don't support Labor, Liberals, the big parties. Don't always be playing like a tennis ball between these people. Pick the independence in your community. Say no to hate, no to distraction. Stay informed, stay fair, and stay human. Take care.